Hey guys, Nuan here with Movie Slinger Reviews. Let's talk about Terminator Dark Fate. We all remember the ending of T2, right? Sarah and John Connor blow up Cyberdyne and stopped Judgment Day. Dark Fate takes place after that. There's a new killer robot called the Rev 9. Rev 9 sounds like the name of a scooter or something.
Guard it for me, Big Bands.
Anyway, the Rev 9 has a new target, Danny, and of course her protector Grace, who was also sent from the future. All standard Terminator stuff until Sarah Connor shows up. So the good guys have to avoid the Rev 9 long enough to find a way to kill him, and the sense of mystery comes from trying to figure out why Danny is important to the future. Except it's not really a mystery for someone who has watched at least 2 Terminator movies. Since Grace is from the future, it is through her dialogue and flashbacks. Do we call them flash forwards now? Anyway, it is through her flashbacks that we can piece together what the future is like. The movie thinks it's building up to this mind-blowing reveal of Danny's purpose, but it's pretty much the same story as the first Terminator, maybe with a slight twist. They had 6 people working on the story and screenplay. Really? It took 6 people to come up with this? Really? I can come up with something better than this. The saving grace to this story is Sarah Connor. She is by far the most interesting character, and I loved the interpersonal turmoil that she is going through. The conflict between Sarah and the T-800 is the only part of the story that felt fresh and interesting. It's great to see the dynamic between them. Linda Hamilton is back. She looks like she can kick Arnie's ass. She's hilariously sarcastic. There's a few emotional moments where she's remembering a painful past, and her performance is really good. She has great chemistry with Arnold, who's incredibly funny in this. There's one tension-fueled scene which the T-800 completely diffuses by going into a lengthy description about his day job. That was hilarious. Decent performance by Arnie. But since it's only a subplot, after a few suspenseful exchanges and arguments between these two, the filmmakers don't really go back to explore this relationship, which is a shame because this should have been the main story. Mackenzie Davis was fine as Grace. She has some sarcastic banter with Sarah Connor, which is fun to watch, and she is really good in the action scenes. Gabriel Luna was really good as the Rev 9. He nailed that Robert Patrick charm during his few lines of dialogue.
He's a good-looking boy.
There's a cool detention center scene where he's just ripping through these guards, and I thought he was a worthy successor to the T-1000.
Thanks for your cooperation.
I think the strength of a Terminator movie depends on 3 things. Number 1, the killer robot, which was good here. Number 2, the target. And number 3, the relationship between target and protector. The target in this movie was not believable at all. It took Sarah Connor an entire movie to go from helpless victim to a tough survivor. And it's only in the second movie we see her as a badass. We saw with both Sarah and John this phase full of doubt where they want to reject their destiny. With Danny, this phase is there, but it's so fleeting and it's just not convincing enough. When the movie starts, she can't even drive a car. Halfway into the movie, she's shooting a gun with good aim after 2 minutes of training. And I'm not sure if it's Natalia Reyes' acting or the really corny dialogue, but some of her moments meant to inspire just fall flat. There are multiple scenes where she puts her foot down and decides to do the dumbest thing possible, and everyone else just goes along with it. I just didn't believe her as the character she's presented as. And the filmmakers didn't spend enough time building the defining element of the relationship between Danny and Grace. That's the final important piece in a Terminator movie. In T2, John needs a father figure and finds that in the T-800. In Salvation, the young Kyle Reese needs leadership and looks up to Marcus, realizes he's no good, and finds John Connor. Even Genesis, which fans hate, is enjoyable because of the adorable father-daughter relationship at the heart of it.
That is a meaningless gesture.
Danny and Grace don't have that defining thing. What does Danny need that Grace has to provide? I don't know. It doesn't grow beyond target and protector, and that's disappointing. It's difficult to feel invested in the story when you don't care about these 2 characters. The action is really good. There's a cool car chase, the fight on the plane was good, and the final stand against the Rev 9 was fun to watch. It's fast, expertly choreographed, and shot well. Tim Miller directed Deadpool, and the action here feels very similar to that. Characters are jumping around, doing flips and superhero landings. It all looks cool, but my problem is that the slow-paced, weighty, hand-to-hand fights are gone. When the T-800 fought the T-1000, there was a real sense of weight, like they were real, extremely heavy machines. Dark Fate is missing that. It might not bother everyone, but it bugs the hell out of me. Conclusion: Linda Hamilton and Arnie are back and they are the best thing in the movie. The action is fun and the Rev 9 is a worthy adversary. However, I didn't care about Danny and her connection to Grace wasn't strong enough to make me care. The story, aside from the Sarah Connor subplot, doesn't have an original nanometal bone in its body. And the movie does drag on a good 15 minutes too long because we already know where it's gonna end up. And it feels even more like retreading familiar ground because some elements of Dark Fate look like they've been recycled from other Terminator movies. A human enhanced with robotic parts, an old-looking T-800 who has learned to be more human.
I'm old, not obsolete.
A prototype shape-shifting nanoparticle robot. We've seen this before. Ironic since this movie is attempting to erase those sequels and trying to look like the true sequel to T2. Really? It took 6 people to come up with this shit? In a parallel timeline where Dark Fate is the only sequel to T2, I'm gonna give Dark Fate a 6.5 out of 10, and you can stream this from the comfort of your home. But it's not the only sequel to T2, so my true rating would be a 5 out of 10, and I'm not gonna recommend you to stream this from home. If you are already home, you might as well just watch T2. It's still awesome. So there you go. Have you watched Terminator Dark Fate, and where would you rank it among the sequels? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. For me, it's more fun than Rise of the Machines, but it's not as good as Salvation or Genesis. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe. Movie Slinger out.